Hello everybody and welcome to the Chapter 2 demonstration right here. I'm not going to repeat the same material that is given in the lecture by the author Barbara Illowsky. My job today is to talk about a little bit about the definitions of relative frequency and relative frequency tables, bar graphs, pie graphs, histograms, and the measures of position, center, and variation. And I want to fill in the gaps of the technology that's left in the lecture by using Microsoft Excel and showing you how to employ this tool to find some of these critical values that we're going to need for the rest of this course. Well, with that said, let's start out. First of all, a couple of notes for the week. First of all, don't forget to fill out the Google feedback form by Friday to be counted as present for the week. Also, don't forget that due by this Monday is a Chapter 2 WebAssign homework, and the first of our 4 quizzes, the Canvas Quiz 1. Those items will be due by Monday for full credit. A reminder, there are 2 things that I do in terms of having help online here for you. First of all is a weekly seminar that I give on Fridays, and the second is a lecture video with feedback, and they're 2 separate items. The lecture, quote-unquote lecture, is my online Google form containing my chapter lecture video. That's the one that must be completed for both participation grade and attendance. The seminar is a live meeting we have on Fridays to 7 to 8 p.m. online that allows you to discuss this week's topics. Now, it's optional, but it's highly encouraged that you attend, especially as you're going through the material and you're getting ready, if you're going to work on it on the weekend or something like that, to get ready to understand the material. Okay, let's not dwell. Let's get right into this. In this section, one of the major topics they talk about, and actually we did this in Chapter 1, was talking about things like basic frequency tables. One where we list categories of table, and the other where we list frequency of each of the category in the number of data tables. Now, I'm talking about a frequency table right now that's directed at categorical data. Qualitative data, not quantitative data necessarily. Although this same kind of idea can be employed when it comes to quantitative data as well. We just have to use it a little bit differently. All right, so let's consider this list of grades from a recent test. The grades are listed right here. And if we were to go through and make a quick frequency table, we see that there are 4 A's, 7 B's, 9 C's, 3 D's, and 2 F's. Well, a relative frequency is made by finding the proportion or the percentage of the data values that fall into that category. There are a total of 25 grades in that list, and of course what we're going to do to find our relative frequency is to divide 4 by 25 and find, well, 0.16 or 16% is our relative frequency for the A's. 7 out of 25 or 0.28, which is 28%, represents the B's, and so on down our list. So we can see how that works out. Now, one of the things that we like to do is create vertical bar graphs that very often represent these grades, and here we can see that in the ranked data that the C's are highest, and it actually gives you a good visual representation of that. A bar graph is known for giving you this kind of information. What we're going to do is we're going to try this out in Microsoft Excel. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to create what's called a pivot table. If you've never used a pivot table, this is a quick and easy way to create a graph, a data table, a relative frequency table, a frequency table, any of that, in order to get some information out of this, a good visual representation. So I'm going to show you how this works. We're going to use something called a pivot table, and the thing about a pivot table is that there's 2 major rules. First of all, any column in which you use a pivot table must have a title at the top. And each column of data can contain no empty cells when we do this. So we have to be very careful to follow those rules when we do this. So I'll repeat that as we go through. But we're going to use the dataset CH movie, which I have in the Canvas dataset. So let's go to Canvas now, and I'll show you where to get that dataset, and you can pause and open it up as soon as you're ready. We'll go. So right here, oh, that's my presentation. Here's our Canvas course right here, right? So what you'll want to do is go ahead and go to Course Modules. Boom. So we're going to go to the Course Modules, and to get this data, we would want to go all the way down. All the way down, just scroll all the way down. And here are my MS Excel data sets that I like to use for my demonstrations right here. And we're going to open up the one that says CH movie. So when you click on that, you'll get the data set right here. It's an Excel format, Excel 13 format. I've already gone ahead and opened it up. Here it is. Here's what that data set looks like. And you can see that we have all of these animated movies here. So these are all this category right here. That's our variable movie. Each movie has its own name, of course. All of them animated movies, it looks like. The company that made these movies, so including Disney, MGM, Warner Brothers, Universal, and 20th Century Fox. The length of each movie in minutes. And interestingly, somebody sat there with a stopwatch, must have, and counted how many seconds of tobacco use are represented and how many seconds of alcohol use are represented in each of these movies. All right, so what we want to do is we're going to come up with a bar graph for the company data right here, right? We want to see, okay, we see Disney made a lot of movies right here, but what was the relative frequency of each of these? So here's the way that we do this. The first thing I do is I copy this column onto a brand new sheet. Now you'll notice at the bottom down there, there is openings for sheets. If you don't see one, you can hit the little plus, and that's going to create a new sheet. But I want to copy these, so you can go up here to where it says copy right here. This is the little symbol for copy. You can do that. You can also hit Control and C at the same time, and that copies your data. Go to your new sheet and copy that data there. So you just hit paste. Boom, there it is. Okay, and you'll notice at the very top cell includes the title company. That's our variable name. And you see that all the cells beneath it is just that. The reason that I do it this way, the reason that I copy that over, is that if you're going to do data work in Excel, one thing that you should be very careful of is not to overwrite any data that you have. And Excel, it's really, really easy to use the tools, but it's really also very easy to overwrite your old data. So I'm always going to use my data by copying over whatever variable I have into a new sheet in order to do that. Okay, just like the rules said, I want to make sure that my variable has a title at the top and that I have no empty cells below it. So I'm just going to select like that. Be very careful. You might see this feature where you try and do this, where if you just hit A, you put your little cursor over A where you get that little arrow and you click on it, it selects that column. But I would be very careful not to do that, because look what happens. You get empty cells. You don't want empty cells right here. You're much better off just selecting and dragging down here. Okay, so we've done that. We selected and dragged down on our data. And now what we're going to do is we're going to insert a pivot table. So here's what you do. Up at this ribbon, we call this the ribbon at the very top. We go to the tab that says Insert and click on that. There it is. Okay. Now, when you see all of these options right here. The only one that we want is the one that's on the very left where it says Pivot Table. We're just going to click on Pivot Table. Now it gives you a whole range of options. You can change where to put the data. You can put the existing data into a worksheet, so on and so forth. No, we're going to just go ahead and let the pivot table do what it's going to do, and it's going to create, it's going to create a brand new sheet for us. So we're going to create this worksheet. Boom, there it is. Okay, so you should see something like this. Now you see it created new sheet 4 right there. I had sheet 2 and sheet 3 already in there, but it creates sheet 4. So this is where we're going to do our work. Now you'll notice that our cursor is in this little box right here. If I put that cursor somewhere else, all this information disappears. You put your cursor on the box right here. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Company over on the right side, and it says Pivot Table Fields. So click on that. There's a little radio button. What happens is that it fills in automatically all of the categories that you had here and adds a little line for grand total. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this. Now what you do here is this. Grab Company by left clicking with your mouse and drag. Drag that down to where it says columns, to sum values, pardon me. You see this little, say, oh, it looks like a little E. That's our sum values area. And look at that. It gives us a count. 33, 2, 4, right? That is about the easiest frequency table you can get. All right, so there we go. So this is our frequency table. Now, let's say we don't want frequency. We wanted a relative frequency. Well, to get a relative frequency, we can add in another table right here. Drag this down again just like we did. Only this time, we can click on the little arrow over here and it says Value Field Settings. So we can change those value field settings this way. Let's say that we didn't want the count of Company 2, right? Because we've already counted. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that. We're going to show the values as percentage of a grand total. That's going to give us a relative frequency. So if we click on that and we hit OK, boom. All right, there it is. There is our percentage, right? So out of 50 movies, 33 of them were from Disney, so that's 66% of our movies. Nice. Also, right, 12% from Universal, 10% from Warner Brothers, and so on. All right, the relative frequency table, that's the one that we're going to use to make our data from. So I'm going to get rid of this one that says count of company, and I'm just going to drag that back up right here. Okay, so the only one that I have right here is my percentage, right? That's my relative frequency. All right, so now let me show you the next easiest part right here. What we want to do if we want to create a graph, we can create two graphs really, really quickly with this kind of data. If we go up to Analyze, right up here in PivotTable Tools, so if you look at it above the ribbon, sort of towards the middle to the right there, you see Analyze. And it says Pivot Chart. Well, guess what? We can insert a pivot chart. And the easiest one, the one that just comes right up right away, is this clustered column chart. Wow, look at that. Once I hit on it, look at that. Automatically, I have my percentages for each of my companies. I see Disney has this huge bar over here. 20th Century Fox, a small one. Universal, a little bit more than 10, right? 12% right there. You can see how Disney dominates the field. So there we go. So now, of course, if you were to do this professionally, you'd want to make sure that you give your you make a meaningful title right here. We'll type in relative frequency of animated movie companies. Right, so we give it a total right there. There's that. We can spread it out. We can go over here at the top. You can actually go up here where it says Design. And you can choose all different kinds of designs. There's quick layouts where you can choose different types of looks. Right? If we save this data, by the way, as a chart in Excel X, right, the newest form. So if you say save as, and let's say I wanted to save it to this PC, and I'm gonna save it as an update here, and I put it in Work Excel Textbook like this. Check this out. Now you've got all kinds of options that come up with this thing. Okay, so you can change that and get new tools and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the relative. Now let me show you how easy the pie chart is, right? You have to have this in percentages to do this, but you're going to go to Analyze again and Pivot Chart. Only this time you can go down here on the left and you can choose Pie. Boom. Look at that. Pie chart, that's what we want. Okay, again, we're doing a relative frequency. Let's just change that. Relative frequency by company. Let's get rid of that title thing there. Okay, now one thing's missing right here. If you're going to do a pie chart, you want to make sure that you actually have percentages listed there. So go to quick chart layout over here. Make sure that somewhere on your field is listed the percentages. Either you have a title somewhere like this, you have it listed by company, but you want to make sure that you list those percentages. I'm going to go with this option. Let's go with this option right here. There we go. So we can enlarge and shorten this, right? But we want to make sure that anywhere that we put our data, right, we list that stuff. Okay, so we make sure that if you're going to do a nice basic pie chart, you show it by showing straight on, right? It's too easy. I think sometimes it's too easy to get your data mixed up and you know, show these fancy pie charts with blown up little features and all kinds of fun stuff. If you're going to be honest with your customer though, and you're the one who's providing this data, my advice, straight up percentages, list the company, list the information, and just give it a meaningful title. That's always the best option. Okay, well there you go, right? These are just some excellent kind of values that we can give really easily. Okay, now a couple questions that I ask right here. The pie chart and bar charts above are used only for qualitative data. Why would it be inappropriate to use either of these kind of data with quantitative data, such as movie links? Well, I'm going to show you why here. Let me just show you. One of the problems that we have with this kind of data is, let's go back up to sheet 1 and let's just say that I wanted to look at movie length, right? This is quantitative data. Now, I mean, it's listed as whole numbers, although time can be considered, especially if it's time in minutes, can be considered continuous data, right? So what I'd like to do is that, let's say I'm interested in creating this sheet for lengths, and I want to do just what I did before. I want to create a bar chart or a pie chart. Let's say we want to do a neat old pie chart of movie times. Okay, so we select our data just like I did right there. I'm going to insert pivot table, let it do its thing right there. I choose movie length, and then I go to rows. See, here's the problem right now. Let's do a pie chart. Does that mean anything to you? No, of course not, right? I mean, even if we put percentages on top, that's not telling me anything. There are way too many categories to go right here. And a pie chart's really inappropriate for this kind of use. And even if we said, let's go for a bar chart, way too many bars. Far too many bars, right? By the way, over here at total, we don't want sum of length, right? Anytime Excel sees numbers like this, it just wants to add them up because Excel loves adding things. We could go to value field settings and put a count, right? And get a little bit of a better view of how many movies. But look at this. 6 movies had 75 minutes. So what, right? That doesn't tell me anything. So this is no good, right? This is not going to help me at all, and that's a reason why we should say that right here in our pie chart, right, none of these would be useful. All right, I'll have another part coming up for you here in a second.